on behalf of myself, welcome all of you to the Universal Brotherhood Day program. As we are aware, topic of today's lecture is India-Sri Lanka relations, new opportunities, new challenges. Before we get on with the function, let me briefly dwell on the idea of Universal Brotherhood Day so that we can see today's lecture in the context. Vishwa Adhyan Kendra, which is dedicated to offer India-centric perspective of world events, holds this Universal Brotherhood Day lecture every year around Raksha Bandhan. Hence the name Universal Brotherhood. Raksha Bandhan is a day to celebrate our bonds together. Also, the Bodha Vakya of Vishwa Adhyan Kendra is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Our endeavor is to promote bonding of entire world with India-centric perspective.
गणना लघुचेतसां उदार चरितानान्तु वसुधैव कुटुम्बकम्.
Chairman of the day's function, Sri Devamuthu, President of the Vishwa Adhyan Kendra, Sri Narasimhan, and friends. May I at the outset express my deep sense of appreciation to the organizers of this function. For those of us who belong to the teaching profession, speaking is not a difficult task, but to be brief and beautiful is an arduous one. I'm reminded of the anecdote the former British Prime Minister James Callaghan mentioned in the course of his visit to India a few years ago. The Yale University in the United States decided to honor one of its distinguished alumni who was awarded the Nobel Prize. The chairman of the university invited the Nobel laureate to come to the university and address the faculty and students. The Nobel laureate was wondering what he should speak on. Finally, he decided to pick up each one of the letters which constituted the name of the university, weave around a theme and speak. So he went to the university and spoke on Y for you, A for ambition, L for liberty, and E for energy for more than 1 hour. At the end of the lecture, one of his professors went up to him and said, "I'm happy you did not go to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology." I shall try to be as brief as possible. In Sri Lanka, formerly known as Ceylon, became an independent country in February 1948. It was relatively a peaceful country compared to the orgy of violence which accompanied the birth of its northern neighbors, India and Pakistan. The transition to independence was very smooth. There was no bitter anti-colonial struggle as in the case of India, Indonesia, or Vietnam. The terms of independence were settled very easily. The result of dialogue between the first Prime Minister, D.S. Senanayake, and the British Colonial Secretary. And D.S. Senanayake wrote that all the terms of independence were settled one evening over a bottle of whiskey. Ivor Jennings, the well-known constitutional pundit, was also the first Vice Chancellor of the University of Ceylon, termed Sri Lanka as a model colony. He called it as a model colony for two reasons. One, the transition to Indian independence was very smooth. And secondly, the first Prime Minister, D.S. Senanayaka, had not only the support of the majority community, he had also the support of the Sri Lankan Tamil community. And therefore, Ivor Jennings said, Ceylon is a classic example how to integrate the various ethnic groups into one nation. In 2014, Sri Lanka mentally is a fractured country. The war has been, again the tigers has been won. The post-war society, but we cannot say the post-conflict society. The expectation that after the war is over, President Mahinda Rajapaksa will have made sincere efforts and stretch his hand of friendship to the Tamils to build a new nation has not materialized. The expectation again that the government will institute its own mechanism to go into the flagrant human rights violation that took place at the end of the post-Ceylon war has not materialized. Sri Lanka today is adopting a policy of defiance toward the international community, which will have its tragic fallout not only for Sri Lanka but also for India. In the 1950s and 1960s, Ceylon was considered to be a vibrant and dynamic democracy. In fact, in the classroom situation, we always used to point out Ceylon as a classic case of a functioning democracy. The voter turnout used to be very high, 85 to 90%. The governments used to change through the ballot box, UNP, SLFP, UNP. There was free press, there was independence of judiciary, there were active trade unions, vibrant students' union, multiplicity of political parties, etc. But today, it's a democracy with a big question mark. After the last presidential election was over, the election commissioner wanted to resign, Dissanayaka. That I want to resign because I was not able to fulfill the promise of a free and fair election. The governmental machinery was used to stifle the electoral process. And in Sri Lanka, remember, unlike India, where we have a constitutionally independent election commission, the election commissioner is appointed by the government. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Shirani Bandaranaike, herself a nominee of Mahinda Rajapaksa, she gave a judgment against the government and therefore she was impeached and she left in this place. Many journalists have taken shelter outside Sri Lanka. Lasantha Wickramasinghe, the well-known editor of Sunday Leader, was a great friend of Mahinda Rajapaksa. He was killed. Therefore, press is stifled. Army is a huge army. For every 400 Sri Lankans, there is one soldier. In this part of the world, there is no other country in the world which has the ratio of army to civilians is so high. In the northern province, there is an army general who is the governor. Mahinda Rajapaksa assured the TNA leader Sambandhan as well as the northern province chief minister that his term is over. I will appoint a civilian as the governor, but his term has been extended. If you want to hold a birthday party in a small hall, if you want to have an athletic meet in a school day function, you will have to get army permission for this. The big brother is always watching you from behind. Now the government is again the NGOs. They do not want the NGOs to function and the NGOs have to be registered. The press has accepted self-censorship. In fact, the first popular revolt against the government did not come from the Tamils, it came from the synods. In April 1971, the Janata Vimukti Peramuna, People's Liberation Front, JVP, this is acronym, raised the banner of revolt against the Mrs. Bandaranaike government. The JVP was an expression of the Sinhalese educated youth. In 1956, Ceylon introduced Subhasha, Tamil for the Tamil, Sinhalese for the Sinhalese, English was given a bye-bye. And the Sinhalese educated youth could not get jobs. There were no job opportunities for them because the English educated people still used to run the administration. And it was Rohana Vijayveera coming from the deep south who expressed the feelings of the Sinhalese educated youth and raised the armed revolt, banner of armed revolt. Ceylon did not have much of an army at that time. So Mrs. Bandaranaike asked for external help. In fact, the JVP had cut the telephone links between Colombo and the outside world. One of my friends, Gopal, at that time was the first secretary in the Indian High Commission. He took the next available flight from Colombo to Thiruvananthapuram, then got in touch with T.N. Kaul, who was the foreign secretary, and said that Mrs. Bandaranaike wants our military help to put down the revolt. So our air force was rushed from Bangalore, the Navy was sent from Cochin and from Chennai. The Navy shielded the Colombo harbour because there were rumors the North Koreans or the Chinese may support the JVP. As a result of it, the revolt was crushed. And emergency was proclaimed from 1971, which went on till 1977. Then the JVP took to the parliamentary path. India-Sri Lanka Accord took place in 1987. On the invitation of President Jayawardene, the IPKF went to Sri Lanka, and the JVP rose like a phoenix. And the JVP this time said, a patriotic struggle against the presence of the foreign army and against those who invited the foreign army to Sri Lanka. The violent armed struggle, cabinet meetings were bombed. I recall going to Colombo at that time for a seminar, and we were airlifted from the Colombo airport to Hotel Golf Phase 3 because they did not want to take us through the road, just controlled by the JVP. And then, since the IPK was present in the north and the east, the Sri Lankan government could withdraw the armed forces. And the armed forces tackled the JVP revolt with a very heavy hand. For every Sri Lankan soldier killed, they killed 10 Sinhalese youth. Those two rivers of exquisite beauty in southern part of Sri Lanka, Kelaniya Ganga and Mahaveli Ganga, during those years were clogged with dead bodies and foamed with blood. The 2 years, 1987 to 89, is referred to by the Sinhalese as Bhishana Samaya, the days of terror. At that time, a Sinhalese young man left the shores of Sri Lanka. International human rights organizations like the Amnesty International and the Human Rights Watch helped him. He went to Geneva, camped in Geneva, and was pleading that the UN should do humanitarian intervention in Sri Lanka to rescue his people from army's violence. I do not know whether any one of you knows his name. His name is Mahinda Rajapaksa, who is now the president. He may not be like to be reminded of his earlier avatar when he was seeking for UN humanitarian intervention. JVP then today has taken to the parliamentary path. But the last time that I went to Peradeniya University and met the Sinhalese youth, many of them are very unhappy that the JVP has taken to the parliamentary path. And the basic problems confronting the Sinhalese youth cannot be solved by the government. So we have to watch not only the Tamil but also the Sinhalese, their way of thinking, the events that are likely to take place among them now. Sri Lanka is a fascinating laboratory to study inter-ethnic relations. In the classroom situation, I am fond of mentioning about a press conference which Muhammad Wali Khan, the son of Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, Pakistani Muslim League leader, the journalist friend asked him, are you a Pakistani, are you a Muslim, or are you a Pathan? Wali Khan said, I'm all the three. But the journalist will not leave him. Then you must mention your first identity, your secondary identity, and your third identity. And Wali Khan said, I'm a Pakistani for the last 35 years. I'm a Muslim for the last 1800 years. And I'm a Pathan for the last 5000 years. All of us have multiple identities. When I was a student in Bombay University years ago, my teachers used to say, you're an Indian first, you're an Indian second, you're an Indian last. Those days we never used to disagree with our professors. We were really scared of the professors because exams will come. Now today, I realize that I am wrong. I have several identities. I have a Tamil identity. Since I spent my childhood in Kerala, I have a Kerala identity. If I am a caste fellow, which I am not, I have a Brahmin identity. I have a Hindu identity, I have a professional identity, I have an Indian identity, I have a South Asian identity. I have multiple identities. These multiple identities should coexist harmoniously. If it coexists harmoniously, then nation building experiment will succeed. If it does not, there will be frictions. Now I'll give you two illustrations. One, a case of success of nation building, and another, a case of failure of nation building, both relating to my community, namely the Tamils. The success story relates to India, and the abject failure relates to Sri Lanka. In old Madras presidency, as you all know, along with the Indian National Congress, there was a Dravidian movement started by E.V. Ramaswamy Naikya. It started a self-respect movement, anti-Brahmin movement and all. Later on in 1943, Naikya said that we should have a sovereign state of Dravida Nadu, consisting of the Malayalam, Tamil, Kannada and Telugu speaking people. He did not consider August 15, 1947 to be a day of deliverance. In fact, black flags were put throughout by his followers, and one of those who hoisted the black flag on August 15, 1947 was Karunanidhi. But gradually, within the decade, there were political forces which realized that despite the limitations of our political system, the Indian political system provides opportunities for you to come to power, foster and promote your Tamil identity while being an Indian. This led to the formation of the Dravida Munnetra Kazhagam and Annadurai in 1949. Then they started contesting the elections. In 1962, they gave up the demand for a separate state. In 1967, they came to power in Tamil Nadu. Since then, it is either the DMK or the AIDMK. In 1979, they became a coalition partner in the center. So, the political forces which at one point of time had no qualms of conscience in burning the national flag and burning the Indian Constitution, today have become the upholders of the Constitution, and they unfurled the national flag on the Independence Day. In Sri Lanka, it was the other way around. In 1948, the Tamils were a part of the government. It was a cooperative form of government. But in 1956, when they wanted to build a nation on the basis of Sinhala language, and in 1972, on the basis of the Buddhist religion, the Tamils said, give us a federal state, let the Tamil areas constitute a province, and you give us power so that we can govern ourselves while being a Sri Lankan. That was negative. They carried on the campaign through non-violence, through satyagraha, which was put down by a heavy hand. Then militancy slowly started creeping in, and to the Tamil youth, what was happening in Sri Lanka was a brute majority of Sinhala, 74% of people were riding roughshod over. So in Sri Lanka, exactly opposite to that, from a cooperative, consensual, consociational, it became competitive, conflictual, conflagrational relationship. And these are two interesting but contrasting experiments on the nation building. During recent years, a new concept has developed in the international humanitarian law called the responsibility to protect, or known by its acronym R2P. It's a very simple, at the same time very powerful idea. At present, the primary responsibility for protecting the citizen lies with the state. But the state becomes a tyrant. The state deliberately commits ethnic fratricide and genocide. The international community has a right to intervene. This responsibility to protect was championed by the former Australian Foreign Minister Gareth Evans, who also brought peace in Cambodia. And in 2006 UN summit, the world international body accepted it. But it has not been given a concrete shape as to what provision, when exactly should the international community intervene, how should it intervene, and how to. But I would love to submit for your consideration, long before this concept of responsibility to protect was propagated, there had been occasion in India's Sri Lanka policy when both in letter and spirit we upheld this principle. And I can give you a few illustrations of that. In 1958, the first organized raids against the Tamils took place in Colombo. Shops were looted, Tamils were killed, the women were raped. Sceneries, hoodlums with political patronage were doing. And the Tamils were feeling unsafe in Colombo. At that time, India had a High Commissioner in Ceylon called Y.D. Gundevia. And Ceylon was a dominant at that time. So Gundevia went to Oliver Gunathilake, the Governor General, and told him, Tamils in Colombo are feeling unsafe. We will send you ships. Those Tamils who are feeling unsafe, they can go to the safety of Jaffna. So we provided ships to them, and many Tamils from Colombo went to Kankesandurai and then to Jaffna. There were about 17,000 Sinhalese in Jaffna at that time, mainly involved in bakery business and all. They were not harmed, but some of them they returned to Colombo. We did not consider the violence against the Tamils to be a domestic affair of Sri Lanka. We thought it is our duty to protect them, to take them to the safety of Jaffna, and therefore Gundevia did that thing. The second one took place in 1981, May, June 1981. When the Sirima Shastri Pact was about to end in October 1981, Sirima Shastri Pact, as you all know, was a pact between Colombo and New Delhi, where the people of Indian origin in the island, the hill country Tamils, were considered as the merchandise to be divided between the two countries in the name of good neighborly relation, which is a very wrong policy. Now the pact was to have come to an end. And the Sinhalese ministers, Cyril Matthew, Gamini Desayaga and other people, they wanted to edge out as many Tamils as possible from Sri Lanka. So they organized raids in the plantation areas, Badulla, Ratnapura, Bandaravena, Chandi, Nuvarelia and all. And plantations were surrounded by Sinhalese villages, helpless. We had a High Commissioner in Sri Lanka, Ceylon at that time, called Thomas Abraham. Thomas Abraham called his two first secretaries. One was Gopal Krishna Gandhi, the other was Renchard Mathai, who later on became the foreign secretary. You go and study the situation in the plantation and come and report to me. They went to the plantation area and they came to the conclusion this was organized riots. And they reported the matter to Thomas Abraham. Then Thomas Abraham, he said, I will go myself to the plantation area. He telephoned the Foreign Secretary W.T. Jayasinghe. Jayasinghe, I am going to the plantation areas tomorrow. Jayasinghe told him, I will not be able to give you security. Thomas Abraham said, I did not ask for your security. It's customary for the High Commissioner to inform the Foreign Secretary when he leaves the capital. And he went to the plantation areas and he saw how the riots were being organized. There were temples so the people were praying where they were shot. In a church, they were kneeling for the mass and they were shot. Thomas Abraham picked up courage, came back to Colombo and said, if law and order is not restored in 24 hours, India knows what to do. That ensures through J.R. Jayawardeni's funds and law and order was restored. Here is one case where we knew we had the responsibility to protect. We did not consider it as a domestic affair of Sri Lanka. Third one. May, June 1983, Sri Lanka had enacted a law by which those who get killed in riots or counterinsurgency measures, their dead bodies can be disposed of without inquest. A law which even South Africans under the apartheid regime never had. Shankar Bajpayee was the additional secretary. He called Bernard Gunatalige, the Sri Lankan High Commissioner, told him, you cannot enact this law. It violates all canons of natural justice and the violation of humanity. We did not consider it to be a domestic matter of Sri Lanka. So we have acted. Why I am mentioning that, I'll relate to you later. Now, how do I characterize the contours of India-Sri Lanka relations? Sri Lanka is, Gandhiji went to Ceylon in 1927 to popularize Gandhi prohibition, and Mahadev Desai has written a small book called With Gandhiji in Ceylon, where Gandhiji referred to Ceylon as India's daughter state. Ananda Kumaraswamy, the greatest Sri Lankan of the 20th century, naturally Tamil, he has referred in his book, the two countries which are so much indebted to India culturally are Sri Lanka and Indonesia. Every aspect of life has been influenced. So there is the cultural indebtedness. You ask every Sinhalese what is his ambition. He would love to come to India, he would love to go to Sarnath, he would love to go to the Lumbini, he would love to go to Gaya, all to these places of worship. There is the love for India. At the same time, there is hatred of India. Love-hate relationship. The asymmetrical nature of relations between the two, that sense made them hate, love-hate relations. And this love-hate relations expresses itself on various occasions. I'll give you 3 or 4 illustrations to prove this point. 1971, the JVP revolt, when India extended military help to Sri Lanka and the revolt was put down. 6 months later, the East Pakistani crisis had developed in a big way. We had banned the overflight of the Pakistani Air Force planes from West Pakistan to East Pakistan. So what did they do? They helped Mrs. Bandar Naika, the Pakistani Air Force planes used to go from Karachi to Colombo, get refuel, and then go to Dhaka to put down the national liberation struggle. Within 6 months, Mrs. Bandar Naika forgot that the stability of her government 6 months earlier was ensured by New Delhi. The second one, 1987-89, the IPKF goes to Sri Lanka on the invitation of President Jayawardene. At heavy cost of men and materials, they were able to bottle up the LTT guerrillas in the jungles of Vani, which enabled the Sri Lankan army to withdraw and tackle the JVP revolt with a very heavy hand. In the normal course, our gesture should have earned for us the gratitude of the Sinhalese. But it did not earn for us the gratitude of the Sinhalese. It was explained away as an expression of India's hegemonistic designs on Sri Lanka. Not merely that, Prabhakaran and Premadasa came together. Premadasa gave a lot of money to Prabhakaran to fight the IPKF. And IPKF came back in disgrace. But the honeymoon did not last long. Premadasa himself became a victim to the cult of the bomb and the bullet, which was perfected by the LTT. In his memoirs, Ambassador Lekhanlal Malhotra, My Days in Sri Lanka, he mentioned that Premadasa told the Prime Minister's Principal Secretary Deshmukh that if IPKF does not withdraw, he will commit suicide. So even the hitherto antagonistic enemies come together against India. 1971 was one of the major foreign policy initiatives of Colombo, Indian Ocean as a zone of peace. The great powers should be removed from the Indian Ocean region so that the countries of the region can develop itself in their own way, which India supported. In 1974, we did the Pokhran explosion, or implosion as we call it. Then Sri Lanka changed. Shirley Amarasinghe, the Sri Lankan diplomat, said, we are asking the great powers to go away, not to allow India to become a great power. So they started supporting the Pakistani proposal of Indian Ocean and South Asia as a nuclear-free zone, etc. Tsunami, 2004 December. Within 24 hours, Colombo harbour was gutted. Within 24 hours, our Air Force plane reached Colombo. We removed the blockade to the Colombo harbour. Railway lines to the southern part of Sri Lanka were gutted. We relaid the railway lines. So at every conceivable opportunity, India helps, but doesn't get anything back in gratitude. Now, why did I mention this responsibility to protect? Now, the war against the tigers, it started in 2006 in a big way, and which ended in 2009. Because of Indian intelligence cooperation, the Sri Lankan government came to know when the supply lines used to come. There used to be floating warehouses. To the ship they used to bring weapons, everything. And then we used to inform Colombo, Air Force planes used to bomb them. So LTTE became fish out of water. Then they consolidated the other side of the parkway so the refugees do not come to India. And the Indian Coast Guard was also patrolling the Indian maritime boundary line. Then LTTE started withdrawing from scene to scene. And then there's a war without witness. Savage bombing, Air Force planes being used. The war against the tigers became a war against civilians. And innocent people were being killed. No fire zones, bomb. Temples, mosques, churches, you bomb. International Red Cross not being allowed to function. There was one Dr. Satyamurthy who was working in the Vavuniya hospital who told me we had no anesthesia and I had to do amputate legs and hands and all without anesthesia. So it became a war against the Tamil civilians, and as you all know, about 40,000 Tamil civilians were killed. At that time I was a member of the National Security Advisory Board. I was pleading that along with the European Union we must rescue the civilian Tamils who are caught between the Sinhalese lines and the Tamil tigers. And I cited 1958, 1981, 1982. But I was in a minority. The South Bloc was interested in ensuring Army's victory. I have no problem in LTTE being destroyed. One of the most ruthless terrorist organizations. They deserve to be destroyed. But the process to kill so many Tamil civilians is a great, it goes against whatever we stand for. And all the perfumes of Arabia will not sweeten our murderous stance at that time. Now in the United Nations, the members of the European Union wanted to censure Sri Lanka. But we supported Sri Lanka. Not only we defeated their motion, we passed a resolution congratulating Sri Lanka for its victory against terror. But at the same time we said, you should initiate now a dialogue with the representatives of Tamils. And those days, Mahinda Rajapaksa used to say 13th Amendment plus. You should also institute an inquiry mechanism of your own to punish the guilty of human rights violation. Since Sri Lanka did not do that, since New Delhi came to know that New Delhi is being taken for a ride by Sri Lanka, India changed its attitude. So it was two times in Geneva resolution was asking for a domestic inquiry into human rights violation and speeding up the process of ethnic reconciliation. So when it came, last year it came to an international inquiry into that. International inquiry is something which New Delhi will not like, because we have also our skeletons in the cupboard. And therefore we abstain from voting as such. So this is, but today the international inquiry is going to take place. They are going to meet in Thailand, they are going to meet in Europe, they are going to meet in the United States. And just as no man can remain an island, no island can also remain an island. And many of these instances, the Sinhalese soldiers who killed the massacre the Tamil, they had taken photographs in their mobile telephone, how they killed. And for money, they sell this. That is how BBC was able to get a lot of photographs, how Prabhakaran's son was killed and all those things. So they are able to get the evidence from the Sinhalese soldiers themselves. Now, I'll take up one or two more aspects. The one is the role of federal units in the makeup of India's foreign policy. Because according to Sri Lanka and according to many people in India, the main villain in India's Sri Lanka policy is Tamil Nadu. More so in coalition government they were a part. Now, in a large country like India, which shares borders with so many countries, our neighborhood policy will have its immediate fallout on the contiguous Indian states. So if you take India-Pakistani relations, the fallout will be on Rajasthan, Gujarat, Punjab, Jammu and Kashmir. Same thing. Nepal relations, we know what country, Bangladesh, all those things. Sri Lanka affects. Now, foreign policy is exclusive jurisdiction of the central government. And during the years of one-party dominance, during the era of Jawaharlal Nehru and Mrs. Gandhi, they did not care for the feelings of the federal units. To give an illustration, Jawaharlal Nehru wanted to give Berberi to East Pakistan. He considered Berberi to be a disputed territory and gave it to East. Wanted to give. But B.C. Roy was opposed to it. He took the issue to the Supreme Court and got a judgment where the Supreme Court judges said Berberi is an Indian territory, and if you want to transfer it, then constitution has to be amended. As far as Sirima Shastri Pact 1964 is concerned, it was opposed by all political leaders in Tamil Nadu. Kamaraj was opposed to it, Rajaji was opposed to it, Annadurai was opposed to it, Ramamurthy was opposed to it. But Lal Bahadur Shastri went ahead with the agreement. Lal Bahadur Shastri was advised by C.S. Jha, the Commonwealth Secretary. If the affected people were Maithili Brahmins, C.S. Jha would not have done it. If the affected people were UP Kayasthas, Lal Bahadur Shastri would not. The affected people were Tamils, they were Dalits. And who cares for them? So the agreement. 1974, 76 Maritime Boundary Agreement. Tamil Nadu was opposed to it. And the island of Kachativu was a part of the Zamindari of Raja Rama. New Delhi said Zamindari does not mean sovereignty, and New Delhi is right. Zamindari does not mean sovereignty. The sovereign delegates the power of collecting revenue to the Zamindar. And if the Zamindari is abolished, it goes back to the sovereign. So when in Madras Presidency, Zamindari was abolished, Kachativu became a part of Tamil Nadu. So in order to obviate all cases, what they did was a disputed territory. And the process of delimitation, you give it to Sri Lanka. One party dominance, in the wishes of the contiguous Indian state. When New Delhi embarked upon the policy of mediatory militant supportive policy after 1983 towards Sri Lanka, when we wanted to mediate in the conflict, at the same time provide military training to the Tamil militants, that was done by New Delhi without consulting Tamil Nadu. Now with coalition governments coming into existence, with the regional parties becoming partners in the central government, it works both ways. The center softens the extremist demands of the state is able to influence the center. So the inclusion of Sethu Samudraram Canal, which links the Park Bay with the Gulf of Mannar, was included in the Congress Party manifesto as a result of persistent effort by the DMK government. But the centre was also able to influence Karunanidhi. The centre's Sri Lanka policy is Tamil Nadu foreign policy also. So Karunanidhi did not do anything when the Tamils were massacred in Sri Lanka. He did some political gimmicks. He went on a hunger strike after breakfast and ended it before lunch. It will go in Guinness Book of World Records as the shortest hunger strike in the world. So centre also affects it. So in India, we have to take into consideration the sensitivities, the feelings of the contiguous Indian state. I am not advocating that state should run the foreign policy of the country. I am not a center, but center in its formulation of foreign policy should consult the state. And think tanks in the various states should make their benign, constructive inputs into the making of foreign policy. I will now take what has been hitting newspaper headlines, the travails of the Tamil Nadu fishermen. Little bit of background is necessary to understand this problem. In the mid-1960s, we were short of foreign exchange. At that time, Mrs. Gandhi was very keen to promote those industries which will earn us foreign exchange. And one of the major industries which got the incentive was fisheries. Formerly, they used to fish in country boats. And the nets used to be made out of cotton thread. So the nets had to be dried. So they used to go to Kathathivu and dry the nets there. Today they are all made out of nylon nets, so drying the nets does not happen. So trawlers were introduced in Parsi. And trawlers, what happens is that trawlers take everything from the seabed. Ethnic conflict started in Sri Lanka in 1983. The fishing was banned by the government. But our fellows used to go to fish. And the Sri Lankan fishermen used to come to Tamil Nadu as refugees. They would be in the same trawlers. And then they would say, you go there, you can catch a lot of prawns. So Sri Lankan side of the parkway became our fishing ground. And fishermen throughout the world are no respecters of maritime boundary. Wherever there is fish, they will go. Trawling did another one. Formerly the fishermen themselves used to own the country boats. Now trawlers required investment. So non-fishermen became trawler owners and fishermen became wage employees. So non-fishermen became the owners. Now Sri Lanka, the ethnic conflict has ended. Sri Lankan fishermen want to resume fishing. And they find the presence of Indian trawlers to be a major hindrance to their livelihood. Trawling is banned in Sri Lanka, but our fellows go and trawl. And the 3 days that our fellows go, Sri Lankan fishermen do not come and fish. The Sri Lankan fishermen cry, they say that if trawling continues, within 20 years there will be no fish on Sri Lankan side also. Now how do we solve this problem? So I have floated the idea about 5 years ago in Happiness that first, instead of imposing a solution from Colombo and New Delhi, drawing the maritime boundary line, you have a solution from below. Let the fishermen of the two countries, they meet, let them discuss, let them decide what should be the one. So fishermen dialogue has started. The second one is that Park Bay throughout history had never been an obstacle between the two countries. There had always been a bridge, there had never been a barrier. People have moved, ideas have moved, art, architecture have moved. Sri Lankans have come to India, they got intermarried and all those things. So let us once again consider it not as a barrier but as a bridge. That Park Bay belongs to both India and Sri Lanka. It's common heritage, not a disputed territory. Let there be a Park Bay authority which can consist of representatives of both countries, fisheries experts, marine ecologists, fishermen's representatives, political leaders. Let them decide what is the annual sustainable catch. Let them decide what type of fishing equipments can be used. Let them decide how can we enrich the sea. And then work out a solution. How many days can Indian fishermen fish? The best way to promote bilateral cooperation, regional cooperation, is not to recognize, is to exploit the geography to our advantage. The connectivity is to our advantage, rather than creating man-made barriers. If you go to the northeast of India, you can see the connectivity. I went to the University of Manipur and I saw a Naga student there. A Naga student who had come from Myanmar and was studying in University of Manipur. During the tea break, I asked him, "You are from Burma," he said. "Was it difficult for you to get a student visa from the Indian Embassy in Raipur?" That boy laughed. I asked him, why are you laughing? Sir, I just crossed the mountains, come here during the vacation, I crossed the mountains. That is the connectivity that we have. We should exploit these connectivities to our advantage. Because the same people have been divided between two countries. There are Nagas in India, Nagas in Burma, there are Mizos in India, there are Chinns, Mizos are known as Chinns, there are Meiteis in India, Meiteis in Burma. So we should exploit this connectivity to our advantage. And only if we exploit this connectivity to our advantage can we fulfill our aspiration. Also, Stanley Tambaya, the well-known anthropologist, and the present Sri Lankan High Commissioner in Delhi, Sudarshan Senivaratne, the eminent historian archaeologist, they have all come to the conclusion that the Sinhalese and the Tamils share many things in common. There is no difference. In fact, Prince Vijaya, when he went to Sri Lanka, as the Mahavamsa says, 700 men went there. There were no women. And all of them, they got married in the Pandyan kingdom in Madurai. So Sinhalese themselves are a product of assimilation between the Tamils and the Sinhalese. When Buddhism died in Kerala, many Buddhists migrated to Sri Lanka. Their surnames like Kuruppu is a typical Malayali surname. The Salagamas are the Sridhavas from Kerala. But when the conflict started, you look at the past to the present or the present. And then you say that the age-old conflict, thousands of years of conflict between the Tamils and the... There were conflict between the Tamil kings and the Sinhalese kings for territorial expansion. But there were Buddhist soldiers in Tamil king's army, Sinhalese soldiers in Tamil king's army, Tamil soldiers in Sinhalese. These are dynastic disputes, not a conflict. The conflict as such started post-1956 when they wanted to build a nation on the basis of Sinhalese language and the Buddhist religion. You know, under the protective umbrella of the British, large number of Indian laborers migrated to different parts of the world. One of the conditions with the British laid down was, wherever they go, they should enjoy the same rights and privileges as the indigenous people, which was not followed in many countries. That's why Gandhiji started the Satyagraha movement in South Africa. The Indian agents were appointed in several countries and all. When the Constitution was enacted, Constituent Assembly was there, Dr. Ambedkar wanted citizenship to be given strictly by domicile. Only those people who live in India should become citizens. At that time, Vaidi Gundevia, about whom I have mentioned, he was our ambassador in Burma. And Burma was a province of British India till 1937. There were a lot of people who migrated from India to Burma because they were part of the same country. So Vaidi Gundevia said it will be unfair if they are not given an option for citizenship. So Vaidi Gundevia came and met Nehru and Hridaynath Kunzru. Then Article 8 was introduced, as a result of which Indian diaspora could apply for Indian citizenship in the Indian embassies. But Nehru's idea was, wherever they go, they should integrate themselves with the local people. Those who want to voluntarily come back to India, they should. But the Sinhalese said no. All those people who were born of the Indian laborers are India's problem. We will give citizenship only to a minuscule minority. Nehru said no. Those who voluntarily want to come, we will take. The rest of them are your responsibility. And they contributed so much for your economic prosperity. After the 1962 conflict and when Lal Bahadur Shastri came to power, he felt that our relations with neighboring countries are all strained, so why not I start on a clean slate? And he appointed C.S. Jha to settle this problem, and Jha had no feelings for the Tamils. So they came, then they were negotiating. And Sri Lankan argument was, you have taken 10 million Hindus from Pakistan, this is not even 1 million, why did you take them? And the Babus in Delhi were willing to take. Then there was a journalist in Delhi called P. Ramaswamy. He went to Kamaraj and told him that if you do not intervene with Lal Bahadur Shastri, whole Indian Tamil population will be taken by, So Kamaraj goes to Shastri and tells him, do not go beyond that. By that time the 7:4 has been signed. It's a bad precedent for other countries. We can take it from Sri Lanka, why not from Malaysia, why not from Fiji, why not from Mauritius. Two other things with you. One is the China factor and the other is the Pakistani factor. which are both will have a lot of impact on India's policy. First, the China factor. Every country has its sovereign right to establish diplomatic relation with another country. We can't object. If Sri Lanka wants to establish diplomatic relation with China, it has got the right. Wants to establish diplomatic relation. But the relations cause concern for us. If there is increasing friendship between China and Sri Lanka, which will have a detrimental fallout on us, then we should be worried about that. If the relation between China and Sri Lanka and Pakistan will have detrimental effect on us, we should be concerned about it. Now, the first thing, we cannot follow a foreign policy of opportunism and cynicism, as China does, as Pakistan. China supported Pol Pot, Ieng Sari, it underwrote the military regime in Myanmar, it supported the nuclear program of Pakistan. We in India cannot do that, because we have a legacy and we have to be more sensitive to the people of the country. That is one. The second aspect of it is that look at China's relations with several countries. The first one was the Rice Rubber Agreement in 1952. When Ceylon was anti-communist. 50,000 metric tons of rubber they used to export to China, and China used to supply rice, and Ceylon was deficit in rice. How did China fix the price? China said rice will give 25% below the market price, and rubber will buy 25% above the normal price. So that was considered to be an ideal example of South-South cooperation. Now today, China is entering every field, infrastructure development, Hambantota Port. Now they started training the soldiers and all those things. China is getting itself entrenched in Sri Lanka. As a result of it, Sri Lanka will not be able to have an independent foreign policy. I'll give you an illustration with reference to Southeast Asia. Now all the Southeast Asian countries have such economic relations with China that today they do not look at China as an aggressive power, as an expansionist power. In Phnom Penh ASEAN Summit, they could not even pass a resolution on the South China Sea. This year in Myanmar, they passed a wishy-washy resolution. Because many countries like Malaysia, Singapore and all, except Vietnam and the Philippines, today they do not want to adopt an anti-China posture. The same thing will happen in Sri Lanka also. The Chinese are allowed to be there. So it is in our interest, and we can use both carrot and stick. First, they should settle the ethnic problem to the satisfaction of the Tamil. Now, during the war, there were negotiations between Colombo and the TNA. Then Mahinda Rajapaksa called up. Then now he is saying the solution to the ethnic problem will be decided by the Parliamentary Select Committee. The Parliamentary Select Committee will be miniature parliament. 33 members, of which only 3 members will be from the TNA. So TNA will be outvoted, outshouted, outnumbered. Now how do we in India solve the ethnic insurgency problem? Take the case of Punjab. So as a result of direct negotiation between New Delhi and the Longowal. Rajiv Gandhi Longowal agreement was signed. How did we solve the Mizo problem? We held negotiations with Lal Denga, and Rajiv Gandhi, Lal Denga accord was signed, so Mizo problem was solved. Nagas, we are having negotiation with the Muwa group. So, negotiation between New Delhi and affected parties. So, New Delhi should insist on Mahinda Rajapaksa. TNA has after all been voted to power by the people, so you start negotiations with them. That's the only way. This Parliamentary Select Committee is only a ruse not to find a solution to the problem as such. Now the other aspect of it is that there is so much discontent against the anti-democratic acts of Mahinda Rajapaksa. Though he is now the champion of the Sinhalese rights against the Tamils and all, Chandrika Kumartunga is opposed to him, Ranil Wickramasinghe is opposed to him and all. And it is essential that we in India, organizations like that of US, or the Indian Center of South Asian Studies, can make constructive inputs.
Debating our motherland, They are very few in numbers, not more than a few dozens, but they have the potential to brainwash ordinary people in Tamil Nadu. We must remember that some of the Tamil Nadu politicians who are supporting Tamil Elam, like Karunanidhi and his DMK, were once demanding a separate Tamil Nadu. If we support Tamil Elam and division of Sri Lanka, on what basis we can deny the separation of Kashmir from India? Division of any country is unacceptable. However, no one can deny equality for Tamilians living in Sri Lanka. Sri Lankan Tamils should get equal rights and opportunities as is available to all Sri Lankan citizens. There should not be any discrimination on the basis of language or race, and there should not be any human rights violation. I think both the Indian as well as the Sri Lankan governments agree on this.
Respected Professor Suryanarayanji, our chief guest tonight, Deva Mutuji, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I, on behalf of Vishwadhyan Kendra and its team, thank Sri Suryanarayanji, and I now request our chairman, Narsimanji, to hand over a bouquet. Thank you. Many thanks to Sri Daivamutuji for taking time off from his busy schedule and for being with us today. I request Sri Prakashji. A very big thank you to the sponsors of today's event, without whose support this lecture would not have been possible. And lastly, on my personal note, I express my sincere thanks to the Karyakartas of Vishwadhyan Kendra who have toiled with me since the last few weeks for this day. Thank you very much, and thank you to all of you.